Football Convos number 2, Chris Fore.
Do as much as you can for your head football coach so that you can get to know the game, 360-degree view of the game.
For daily conversations with the players, coaches, and contributors that make this game great.
Regulators, mount up. We're coming.
Football Convos. Here's your host, Andy Carlson.
Joining me now on Football Convos is Chris Fore at Coach Fore on the Twitter machine. Coach, author, entrepreneur. Check him out at chrisfore.org, EightLaces.org, and also shieldpunt.com. Special teams coach at Oak Hills High School in California, the Mojave River League champions. That's right. Chris, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing real good. Thanks for having me, Andy.
Absolutely. Now, special teams aficionado, is that fair?
Well, I love special teams. I really love them. I don't know if I like the title aficionado. That makes me sound a lot more smart than a high school football coach is. But passionate about special teams, and I've been a head coach for 8 years, and I've been the special teams coordinator on all 8 of those teams, and then I'm a special teams coordinator now, so I really love them.
All right, so Chris, let's get into it right away. Tell me your football story, both playing the game and how did you get into coaching?
Well, I'll say this first. I really love this idea you have of doing these football conversations, and I listened to your Zero episode, the first one, and I'm looking forward to hearing people's football stories as you're doing these. So,
thank you.
Very cool idea. But my football story is interesting. It's, I think, a lot different than a lot of other coaches. I grew up in a small town out here in California named Fallbrook, and Fallbrook has a rich tradition of small-town high school football. I think there were 25,000 people in the town when I was growing up, and we had one high school in that town, and they still do today. And the coach, Tom Pack, was there, all in the 80s, kind of when I was growing up, and I'm an 80s kid, and they had some great football teams. And so everybody in Fallbrook was at Fallbrook High School on Friday nights, and that included me as a 4, 5, 6, 10-year-old, And I just grew up in one of those towns where you see the kids at McDonald's or, the hardware store in town. You see those high school football players, and you think that, they are God. And that's kind of the environment I grew up in, just loving high school football. My uncles, my dad played at the high school, and then, would make sure to have me there every Friday night watching. So it was a dream for me to play Fallbrook football, and I eventually did. However, I only played 2 years, my freshman and sophomore year. Between my sophomore and junior year, I was in a car accident on the way home from a church event at night in the middle of the summer. And my friend was driving. He was actually killed. We hit a telephone pole, and my left leg, every bone in that leg basically was snapped in half.
Geez.
Yeah, it was a bad one. I was in the hospital for about 23 days and had, 6 surgeries to basically keep my leg together. And so my junior year of football, I was on the sidelines basically in a wheelchair for most of that season, watching my friends battle it out. And then my senior year, I tried to come back against doctor's wishes. The first one said no. Second one said no. The third one said no. But, I just loved the sport, and I was a 16, 17-year-old kid, thought I could do anything. Well, I re-broke 3 bones in the foot my first day of spring practice my senior year. So that was it for me. I played 2 years of high school football. However, because I could not play my senior year, that's when I started coaching. So it's kind of a unique story. I got into coaching the freshman football team there as a senior in high school, and so I've never looked back. Never looked back since, and been real bitter with not being able to play, because I just kind of see that there was another plan for my life was to get into the coaching side. So that's kind of my football story. And I've been, I coached senior year of high school and then my freshman year of college, and then took some time off, as a college student to focus on college, and then got back into it, 13, 14 years ago.
Now, what were some of your previous stops in coaching after you got out?
So they're Fallbrook High School, obviously there, and then I was at a school called Linfield School down in Temecula, California.
Yep.
And then I was at Linfield for 5 years. That's where I became a head football coach. And then I left there and went over to a school called Capistrano Valley Christian, which is in Orange County, California. And then I was there for 5 years, and then got a great athletic director job and special teams coordinator at a school called Excelsior Charter, which is in Victorville. Mm-hmm. And then left Excelsior. I was there for about 18 months, and new administration came in and brought in their own athletic director, so that brought me over here to Oak Hills High School, where I teach special ed math, and I coordinate the special teams and coach running backs.
Which job is more difficult, would you say, football coach or athletic director?
Oh, boy, that's a loaded question. I would say, I'd say each of them are difficult in their own way. But off the cuff, I'd say being a head football coach is a little more difficult than being an athletic director. I think that obviously there's a lot of pressure on you as an AD for your programs to succeed and do good, but you have a lot of control there in being able to hire the head coach who's going to run that program to your expectations. I think being a head football coach, you've got just a lot more pressure on you to have a great program, and I think there's a lot more things. You're held accountable, I think, to a lot more pieces of the puzzle as a head football coach than you are as an AD, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Now, what is EightLaces.org? What was the genesis of that?
Well, the genesis of EightLaces.org, I got on Twitter, like a lot of coaches, I wanted to see what was out there, I think about 2 years ago, and just kind of see, what I just heard great things about Twitter and started getting on there. I love to write. I've always been a guy who really enjoyed writing, and so I started a blog just to start sharing some of my own thoughts with guys. I stole that idea from another coach I saw and said, hey, man, I love writing. I'm going to put some of this stuff out there. And I was actually, looking for a job at the time, and I thought, well, one of the things to, help put yourself above maybe some other candidates is creating your own little blog and being able to send that to a principal or an athletic director hiring a head football coach. Hey, here's what my practice plan looks like. Here's what my meeting with the parents looks like. And so I built this blog out and at coachfore.org and just started writing and putting articles out on Twitter, and guys started liking it, and then guys started saying, hey, I love this document. Can you send this document to me? I see on your website, and hey, I love these, this series you did on spring football. Can you, send me all those documents from that? And so I thought, there's kind of a need out there for administrative, organizational pieces that have to do with, being a football coach, and that's one of the areas that's a real strength for mine. So I kind of just created this manual. I call it Outside the Lines. I have a football edition and an athletic director edition, but it's got about 100 forms that any head coach would need, and that's been a real valuable tool, I think, from a lot of coaches, the feedback I get from them. And so that's just where I sell it, is at EightLaces.org. I've got some, different products on there. I've written a book that was published by Coach's Choice. That's on there. And then some other things I do in the way of helping coaches with their resumes and cover letters and interview preparation. So yeah, EightLaces.org is just kind of a, one-stop shop for coaches in that area.
And that's what I wanted to ask you or expand a little bit, because there's a lot of good coaches who want to get involved. They have the heart of a teacher, but they just can't get past that first couple steps of setting up, getting the interview and actually landing a job. So what are a couple tips that you would give prospective coaches trying to land that first big gig?
I'd say, for one of the main ways to get a job is through networking, and so, that's what I tell coaches all the time. Being able to network and get out and meet people is a very important aspect of, securing that first job down the road sometime. I was recruited by Capistrano Valley Christian School to come over there, and, the principal and I coached baseball at Linfield Christian. I was an assistant baseball coach there, and the principal was head baseball coach, and so, we just got to just being a nice guy and two guys talking, baseball and then talking about working at a school, and we did some similar things at the schools we were working at, and, I guess for whatever reason he tucked my name in the back of his head, and when it was time to hire a head football coach, he called me. So that networking aspect is real important. And then second, I'd say, I help a lot of guys with their resumes, and a lot of coaches don't sell themselves well enough on their resumes. Coaches by nature, we're a lot of coaches at the high school level are pretty humble guys. They work for a nickel an hour, year round, bust their rear ends to build their programs, and so they don't feel like bragging. But like I say on their resume.
What's an example that you've come across where a guy's sort of sold himself short?
So yeah, the other night, a client of mine who he hired me to, create his resume and work on his resume, kind of remake it. And we were talking, one of the things on your resume is that I help coaches to do, really pull out and do a good job of, is using stats, facts, and figures on their resume to show that Coach Carlson did a phenomenal job at Minnesota High School. He wasn't just a coach there, but he started a study hall that eliminated 70% of the ineligible kids. He started a Booster Club golf tournament that raised $15,000, in its first year. Well, another one. So you asked for a real example. The other day I was talking with a coach, and I said, hey, you guys went 5-5 in that very first year, I see. What was their record before you got there? And he said, well, they were 0-10 the year before I got here. I said, okay, what was their record before that? He said 0-10. I said, wow. How about the year before that? He said 0-10. I said, holy smokes,
Seems like something you could sell.
This school went 0-40 in the 4 years before he got there, and then they went 5-5, and then 10-2, and so right away when I hear that, my athletic director mind goes, well, these guys were 0-40, and you won 15 games in 2 years. This dude's a heck of a coach. If I was hiring head coaches and I saw that as the first bullet point, I mean, honestly, from that bullet point alone, I would stop reading the resume and I'd put it in the yes pile. Yes, I'm going to interview this guy. But nowhere on his resume did he even represent the fact that he inherited an 0-40 program and won 15 games in 2 years. Mm-hmm. So that's where guys miss the boat on their resumes, or they'll list a bunch of figures or stats, quarterback threw for 2,400 yards and 27 TDs. But if a stat is just on your resume without being compared and contrasted, it doesn't mean much, because I tell guys all the time, you need to think about your resume being in the hands of a search committee. On that search committee, you might have a vice principal. She's only on that search committee because she's in charge of discipline, and she wants to know what kind of character building you do as a head football coach. Mm-hmm. When she sees that your quarterback threw for 2,400 yards, you might as well speak Chinese to her. Mm-hmm. However, if you say, hey, we increased my quarterback's passing yardage by 46% and his touchdown production by 38%, now percentages mean stuff to people. If you say that, hey, we inherited an 0-40 team, won 15 games in 2 years, any Tom, Dick, or Harry hopefully is going to understand this guy knows what he's talking about. So there's a couple areas there, where guys they sell themselves short on their resumes because here's the number one mistake coaches make on their resumes is they create them just like the business world, where you list your job titles and your job duties. And so, I was speaking with a Division II college football coach on Sunday, and he said, hey, I went to the business office, the business, they have like a career center on campus, and they help to do free resume service for their students and employees. And so he sent me this resume that business office helped him put together. And like I said, it said, hey, he's an assistant football coach. He coaches the running backs. And then the first bullet point says, my duty is to prepare the running backs for the game of football. And then the second bullet point is, coach the running backs every day on the fundamentals of running the football. And so a business person understands, hey, that's how you write a resume. I want to pull out and get on there. Not only do I coach the running backs, but my running backs led the conference, and we increased their production by, 18% in my first year. So if you can see kind of where I'm going, you have to be able to show that you were a great football coach. You did some great things there with the stats, facts, and figures, both on the field and off the field. And that's real important, and I think where coaches miss the boat.
Stats, facts, and figures to sell yourself. And you talked about some of the soft skills, like dealing with parents and grades, fundraising, that a lot of NFL coaches absolutely don't have to worry about. College to a lesser degree, but high school coaches and youth football coaches, this is right in their wheelhouse.
Oh yeah, I mean you got to be a jack of all trades as a high school football coach. There's, you're 1 minute you're watching film and trying to figure out how to stop a Mike linebacker on a blitz, and literally 2 minutes later your starting running back is coming in your office all ticked off and upset because the girlfriend broke up with him, and 30 minutes later, your third string wide receiver's mommy is on the phone because he's not seeing playing time. The next day the vice principal is in your office because the football players are leaving trash by the lunch tables. So yeah, you got to be a jack of all trades, and so being able to represent your management style and your ability to lead your players on and off the field on that resume, it is key. That's coaches a lot of times say to me as I get them thinking about these things, they'll say, I never thought of putting, how much money we raised on a resume. I never thought of, I did. I started a study hall mentoring program with retired teachers in our community, and that led to 0 kids being ineligible last year. Well, how many were ineligible the year before that? Oh, shoot, Coach, we lost 12 kids the year before that. And so to be able to create a bullet point that said, hey, we started a mentoring program with retired teachers that eliminated our ineligible kids. To a principal, to an athletic director reading that, they know that, hey, sure, this guy can coach, but you know what? He's also interested in developing and mentoring these kids. So that in some communities, at some schools, that might be more important than your success on the field.
It goes a lot further than just X's and O's. Now, what are your thoughts when you see coaches like a Gus Malzahn, Hugh Freeze, Art Briles, Chad Morris succeed at the high school levels and then moving on to major college football programs?
Yeah, I think it's great for the profession of high school football coach because it shows that, hey, just because you're at the high school level, that doesn't mean that you can't do the more important, so to speak, in the eyes of the world. You can't go and coach at a larger in a larger venue, at a larger setting, coach, go make a couple $1 million instead of a couple $1,000, for coaching. I think it's just been a great thing for the high school coaches. I know it gives some guys hope, and some guys, unfortunately, they have maybe false hope. But I know Tony Sanchez right now. It looks like he's going to be. We're talking here. Yep. Yeah, we're talking here in early December. It looks like he's going to get the UNLV job, and I just think that that's a really great thing for high school coaches. I think that the the fact that the colleges and the administrators at the college level would trust some of these guys, to make those hires. That's a great thing. And, I've seen, I saw that movie this weekend, When the Game Stands Tall, about Concord de la Salle.
Oh, yeah.
Coach Laddiser, the head coach up there, who repeatedly, denied college opportunities and college jobs. And, there's a really great head football coach here out in California named Harry Welch, who's won numerous state titles, and I know he's had job offers at the college level as well. And, there's just some guys who don't want to go that route because it is, it becomes more business and maybe more pressure, and they just, they like the high school game and the abilities you have to truly mentor kids at this level.
All right, 2 special teams questions for you. One, what is a shield punt, and why does the NFL prohibit it?
Oh, so the shield punt is, I think I'm real passionate. I love the shield punt. It's something I started using back in, I tell guys before it was cool, back in 2002, I was at a clinic, and I was charged that year with, hey, you're going to be our special teams coordinator next year. So I'm out at a clinic doing some research and heard this guy from Rutgers University had a clinic talk called Dare to be Different, the shield punt. And I said, whoa, this is different. I'm kind of one of those guys who likes to do things a little different sometimes. And so the shield punt has become real popular at the college level about the last 3 or 4 seasons here. And basically it's 7 men on the line of scrimmage. They're all about 1 yard apart, and then you've got 3 guys who act as that shield about 5 to 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and then, of course, your punter is behind them. So the philosophy of the shield punt is you want to funnel everybody inside to that shield, and so those front 7 guys have pretty wide splits, and they get down to the football. At the snap of the ball, they are leaving the line of scrimmage to go attack that football and to minimize the yards that ball carrier can get. And so it's very, very difficult to block that punt off the edges because of how wide the guys are aligned. And, again, you're just funneling guys to your shield. Usually those shield guys are big dudes. This year I used 3 defensive linemen there. And so it's a great system. It's one of those where guys usually don't have much space and much green grass down there in front of them when they catch that ball. And so, this year, for instance, through our first 12 games, we allowed just 12 yards of punt returns. One kid ran the ball for 13 yards, and then another kid tried to run the ball, lost 1 yard. And so, through our first 12 games, we gave up 1 yard per game on a punt return. And that was just 2 kids who attempted to return because most of the time they're just fair catching it. They got guys in their face. So
you're saying that Carolina 2 weeks ago should have used some sort of version of the shield punt when the Vikings block 2 punts and run them back, baby.
Yeah, that was amazing. I know you're a Vikings guy. You just don't see that very often in a football game at any level. 2 punts being returned. So now I understand. From conversation I had with a guy with the Jacksonville Jaguars last year about the shield punt, they're not allowed to send all those guys down there. They're only allowed to send 3 guys at the snap of the football down the field. So I think they're doing that, 1, so that you can get some punt returns because they're exciting, and then 2, probably a safety issue there at the NFL level as well. And then 3, the NFL is just so stinging boring sometimes. There's no imagination with some of their stuff. So,
I agree. And you talk about safety in the NFL. What are your thoughts about concussions in youth and high school football nowadays?
Well, I've got a lot of thoughts about that. I think that I'm more concerned with what's happening. I think at the youth level, because the more I read and the more research that's done, it's like a kid getting concussion at the 6th grade level is probably 3 or 4 times as bad as a sophomore in high school. Just because their brains aren't as developed and really need to grow and develop more. So I think that the medicine and the medical the technology we have these days is going to hopefully help the long-term health of these kids, and adults and guys in the NFL. I think that the protocols that are happening, across the board, I think they're good things for the sport. I know out here in California there's been some protocol and some, new government regulations that come down on high school football where they've received, almost no communication from high school coaches. And I think that's a concern I have. I think the coaches should always be involved with the discussion on regulations and new laws, legislation coming out. But, I think that probably the media has brought more attention than is necessary to concussions. And, I think that it's such an unknown, but there's been such a scare out there that, some numbers out there around the nation of participation are down because of the media hype and the media scare. So, as a longtime football coach, that's frustrating that,
Yep.
Parents are not letting their kids play because they're afraid of it. And it's almost like being afraid of an unknown because we're not totally sure what's going on.
Now, you talked about the media, don't want to say hype, but more greater attention towards concussions in the sport of football. But with that concern, wouldn't you say that it's probably the safest time to ever play the game in history?
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's a very, very good point, and that's a point a coach made to me 6 or 7 months ago when we were having this discussion, and it's the first time I'd heard it, and I said, "Wow, that makes more sense than anything." You're absolutely right. I mean, nowadays it's scary going into some of these football games because if a kid gets hit and just is stunned, where maybe it wasn't. There might not have even been a concussion there, and none of us know. But he, that old adage where he got his bell rung or he got stunned, he got hit, and then now he's not going to play the entire game. I mean, that can hurt you. We lost a kid this year, our MVP of our defense in a playoff game. It wasn't a head issue. It was something else. But, the offense had a great second half without him out there calling our defense. And so that's what you hate to see a kid miss the chance of playing, or a team lose a game because a kid possibly has a head injury when we don't really know if he has one, even if he passes all the the battery of tests. The language here in California is talks that if you're suspected of having a concussion, you're done for the night. And so I don't like that language, to be honest with you.
Either way, it's a lot safer than like back at the 1900s when Teddy Roosevelt had to legalize the forward pass because too many people are dying.
Absolutely, yeah. Great point.
Yeah, all right, Chris. We got to get off the field and go 3 and out, so let's hit that up. List of 3 quick-fire questions to bring us on home. First one, who has been the most influential on you in your coaching career?
I'd say it'd be that guy I referred to earlier, the kind of guy who became a mentor to me. He was a god in the town I grew up in, Coach Tom Pack. He again, I looked up to him for all these years, and I got to go play for him. Then I was his teacher's aide when he was AD, and I got to sit in his office every day with him. And then he's a guy I still go back to and ask questions about every football season.
What's one piece of advice that you give to a person who wants to get where you're at, wants to get into the coaching game?
I get asked that question often by younger coaches, and do everything you can to learn the sport. A lot of coaches these days, a lot of the younger guys especially, they come in a little too arrogant, and they don't want to do their time. They don't want to watch the film. They don't want to work on the stats. If you want to get in and develop a career in football, you need to get in at the level that you can get in. If that's freshman football, it's freshman football, and you need to learn to do everything possible. The gear distribution, collection, how do you hydrate players, how do you work with parents. Do as much as you can for your head football coach so that you can get to know the game, 360-degree view of the game.
Yep, just like anything, got to get in, got to grind, got to put in the leg work and move on up.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's a book recommendation you got for us? Football, life, or otherwise?
Great question. I think two books I'd suggest. One would be Mike Shanahan, Think Like a Champion. It's the number one, my favorite book football-wise. I think he wrote it maybe right after in the late 90s when he won those back-to-back Super Bowls. But that's a phenomenal book, Mike Shanahan's Think Like a Champion. And then my second favorite book is by a guy named Sam Sheridan called The Fighter's Mind. It's Inside the Mental Game, The Fighter's Mind by Sam Sheridan. And Sam went and spent an extended amount of time, 1 or 2 months, with all these different UFC fighters. And he wanted to get inside their mind and see how they operate, how they train, why they operate the way they do. And it is just one of those books any coach in any sport should pick up. Just a ton of anecdotes and stories on creating that warrior-like mentality inside the mind of the athletes.
All right, Chris. That's about it from us. How can people interact with you, social media, website?
Yeah, social media, as you said earlier, it's at Coach Fore, CoachFore. And then my blog, is at coachfore.org, CoachFore.org. And then I've got some of those products we talked about, mentioned earlier, at EightLaces. That's spelled out EightLaces.org. So those would be the 3 best ways.
All right, and all this info will, of course, be on our show page when the episode airs. Real quick before we go, who's the best high school player you've ever seen with your own eyes?
Ooh, with my own eyes, I would say on the field would be, that's easy. It's Reggie Bush. Reggie played, out here in San Diego, Helix High School. I was coaching at the time. I got to see him play twice in high school, just once in a playoff game when we were done and once on a bye week. He actually played my old high school down there, Fallbrook High. And I'd heard and read all about him, and this was a sophomore year. I'm sitting up in the bleachers. I'm filming the game just to be able to watch it later. And Reggie returns the first kick 95 yards for a touchdown. And then I saw him throw a 95-yard touchdown pass as well in a playoff game against Oceanside High. He took a pitch and started running with it and then pulled up and got leveled, but threw a 95-yard touchdown pass to a teammate. That was a pretty exciting thing to see, too.
Reggie Bush, amazing high school player, great player at USC. Yeah, no matter what the sanctions say, we all saw what happened on the field, but what could have been in the NFL, man? Yeah,
he's a dynamite player.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for your time. Join us on Football Convos. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Football Convos. For more daily football conversations, visit footballconvos.com or visit us at iTunes.